and that shrouded sort of dark cloud that hangs above a lot of topics that people are too afraid to talk about. But that fear usually comes from simply not knowing and not being educated. So we combat that by talking about it.
Sure, yeah. Now, Jessica, you said a couple of things which are so powerful and they resonated deeply. One of the things you said was disability is as much of a mental battle as it is a physical one. And you've also said that the real danger lies in making assumptions that people of determination can't be physically strong.
Yes.
And your life, Jessica, bears testimony to both of those things. I mean, especially to the growth mindset. You know, you eventually went on to become a Paralympic swimmer. You represented your country, which you said was one of the most powerful things that have happened to you. You know, you met these beautiful, resilient people, this community. Talk to us about, because, you know, when we think about difference and disability, often the first thing that strikes is, the physical. And whereas you've put it so poignantly to say the mental is as much a facet of it and can become a huge stumbling block. So I suppose talk a little bit about that mental battle and what went into the making of the Paralympic journey, which is just, I mean, goosebumps, right?
It is incredible. I often say that I'm more disabled by the way society sees me and the assumptions they make about me than anything I can or can't do physically.
Right.
So that, I guess, started to develop as a child when I realized I could do things. I wasn't incapable, even though mostly adults around me were saying, well, you can't do that, or don't try, you know, we don't want to put you in a situation where you feel uncomfortable. And I decided very early on that I wasn't going to be defined by my disability or by my appearance. And of course, the most obvious way for me to prove that was through movement. Growing up in Australia, I come from a very sporting family, and I realized that if I could participate in sport and prove to myself and the world that I could do things physically, maybe then it would prove to everybody that I am capable. And the reason that's important, going back to what you said about that mental anguish and the mental side of it, is that I knew I could do things physically, but when you're constantly being told that you can't, it plants this seed of self-doubt. And it impacts my own, you know, self-confidence. And so I needed sport to be able to use that as a platform to then influence how I was feeling and managing my own feelings and emotions around my disability. And so I remember competing in my first school swimming event when I was 10. And there was a teacher, sadly, who said, you know, are you sure you can swim one lap of the pool? And I knew I could, but I was like, oh goodness, maybe I can't. You know, you start to question everything about what you believe to be true and what you know about yourself. And thankfully there was another teacher who said, of course you can do it. And in that moment I had a choice to listen to that negative idea or to listen to the positive and to use that as motivating energy for the race ahead. And so I swam the 50 meters freestyle and I won. I beat all the girls and boys with 2 hands. And for the first time in my life, I felt as though I was being acknowledged for what I could do rather than the assumptions of others about what I couldn't. And it was a phenomenal experience. You know, just, I mean, it was literally just a school carnival, a school event. It wasn't a massive competition, but I felt so proud of myself and so elated and excited. And I said to my mum and dad, I want to swim forever because the way it made me feel was so profound. At the time, I hadn't even heard of the Paralympic Games. I didn't realize there were races or competitions for athletes with a disability. But that began, you know, that learning and that journey of going into Paralympic sport. So I started competing locally. And then before I knew it, at the age of 13, I was selected onto my first Australian swimming team. So very young. And I continued to represent Australia for 7 consecutive years. And it was honestly the most amazing experience of my life, being able to travel the world wearing the green and gold colours of Australia very proudly, and really being able to elevate myself out of that mental anguish of feeling as though disability was still seen with so much stigma and so much negativity and toxicity, that swimming gave me an opportunity to give myself a voice. However, it was also during that time of just being an adolescent girl and wanting to fit in and wanting to be popular